Hey everyone, welcome back to our Blender tutorials. Today we are going to be going through the navigating through the 3D space tutorial. Now before I begin, we're going to jump in really quickly, so I'm going to mention these two things really fast. The first one is that Blender is a hands-on, both the mouse and keyboard type of program. It is fairly efficient to use both of the mouse and the keyboard at the same time. It'll just maximize your efficiency in the program and you'll be able to do things a lot easier and faster. So keep that in mind. Secondly, I do have screencast keys on again, as you can see down there. I will have it on for pretty much every tutorial that we have here. So if you ever get lost or confused as to what I'm pressing during the tutorial or tutorials in the future, quickly look down there. I know I mentioned that in the last video, but if you are confused, especially during this one, as it can be kind of confusing, just check right down here where the screencast keys, where my mouse is going in circles, and you'll be able to see what I'm pressing. And just pause the video, go back and see if you're confused at any point. So yeah, let's just jump right on into the first thing of the navigating through the 3D space. Alright, so here we have our Blender object. This is Suzanne the monkey. It is a default Blender object, unfortunately. I did not make it, but very kind of cool test thing I like to think of. So yeah, don't wow over it completely. You can add this into your Blender space, which we will be talking about in a future video. But today we're going to be talking about navigating through our Blender space, I like to call it, I guess. So the first thing we're going to be doing is rotating. Now, rotating is something you will be using on a regular basis, at least a majority of you are, since it's so easy and it's so fast to do. So what you're going to want to do is press down on the middle mouse button. If you look down here right now, press down on it. It's just highlighted right there. Do it one more time. And one more time. There we go. So that entire thing, you're going to just press down on it. Make sure you hold it down, and then just drag your mouse while holding it down. You can drag it left, right, down, up, whichever way you can think of diagonally, if you can even do that. But yeah, you kind of get this radial view of the object that you are looking at. Very useful, especially if you want to just quickly pop over or pop backwards to see if something's wrong, or if you just don't like the look of it, you can quickly pop back, change, pop right back. Pretty useful. So now the second thing we're going to be doing is zooming in and out. Now let's just say if I want to look at the pixels or the vertices of the monkey right here, all we got to do is just scroll in by pushing down on the wheel of the mouse, the same thing you just pressed down. Just make sure you scroll in or scroll downwards on it. And then you can see right here in the screencast, you kind of get this little half of it, because that's the half that's going down. And as you can see, we're practically in the monkey's nose at this point, or mouth, or something. And you can kind of see everything right there, kind of useful, especially if you want to change like vertices or anything else. So there's that, and then zooming out, just do the opposite of what you just did. So scrolling backwards on the wheel, and here you'll get this kind of far out view of your Blender space and the object that you just created, or objects that you have created. Especially if you want to get like a nice, overlooking view of the things that you're trying to make. This is definitely useful for seeing that. So you can kind of use both that and that right there. So pretty useful. Now the second thing we're going to do is strafing. Now this is a little bit more complicated, slightly, only slightly. Let's just say this kind of looks a little off-center. Maybe I want to get like a side view of it, or maybe I have multiple objects on either side of this object here. Now all I got to do is what we call strafing. Pretty useful thing, especially if you want to get a center view. So what we do is hold down Shift and hold down the middle mouse button that you use to rotate at the same time, and then just hold down and drag your mouse. So as you can see, we're going left, right, up, down, side to side kind of thing. So if I want to get the monkey right there, I can do that. I can also put him right there and look at another object right next to him, or vice versa. Fairly useful, especially if you want to rotate here and do the same thing, get a nice side view. Really depends on what you want to do. It just moves the camera a little bit. Like right there, I have a nice view of the monkey's face. But yeah, that is what we call strafing. You will definitely be using that, especially if you want to get a better view of a certain angle of your object. You can zoom in like that, and then move it like that. Oh, I want to see the back. Really depends, up to you, what you want to see. We got a really close-up view. But that's what strafing is. Now finally, the last part of this segment is what we're going to do is numpad keys. Now these things, very useful. You are going to be pressing these a lot, especially if you want to switch between views really fast. It also makes you look pretty cool. But the first one we're going to be pressing is the numpad key 7, as you see in the screencast keys in the bottom there. You get this kind of top-down view of the monkey or of the object that you are creating. So if I'm like looking right here and I'm like, oh, I want to see the top, I just press that and bam, right there. Went straight to the top of the head of the monkey or of the object. Now if you press 1 on the numpad key, you get this like front and center kind of view. So if you're looking at the back and you're like, okay, let me switch to the front, press numpad 1, right to that. So fairly useful. And finally, if you press numpad key 3, you go to the side view. So once again, if I'm like below here, I press 3, bounce right back up. Really nice. Makes you look pretty cool if you can do it well too, and really fast. But those are the numpad keys. Now, to make sure that you know what the numpad keys are, because some people actually might not. They are the numbers on the right side of your keyboard. Presumably they're on the right side, which most of the computers that you're using for this should be on the right side. They're not the ones at the very top above the letters. They're going to be on the completely different right side. Just so you know, make sure that you can press the right ones. So finally, there's one more numpad key we're going to touch on in this segment of the tutorial, and that is the numpad 0 key. Now, when I press it, I go into this little boxed view here, and everything around the box gets kind of dark. Now, we're going to be touching on this a lot later in our tutorial series, as this is a little bit more advanced, but it is still useful to know. So as you can see, we got this box around our object, and everything kind of grays out. Now this is for like seeing things rendered in certain little areas in case you don't want to render the entire scene. Pretty useful, especially if you don't want your computer to take forever to just render just one part of the scene. So if you want to get out of that, just hold down the middle mouse button, rotate, and you go right out of it. So what you can see here is actually right there, there's a little camera. It's a little bit harder to see in this theme that I'm using actually. Kind of regretting using the theme a little bit, but you can still see it right there. It's a little dark. But if I click it, there you can see it looks like a weird triangle with another triangle. It's a little weird, but as you can see, I can move that and move it like that, and then if I press 0 once again, I go right to where it's facing downwards. So this part right in this box here would be rendered. Once again, we'll touch on this way later in our tutorial series, but just kind of a useful thing if you want to do that now and see what it does. It's not completely useless, so yeah, just make sure you don't delete that completely. So yeah, let's move on to the next segment. Alright, so for this segment we're going to be doing a little bit more precise rotations. We're just going to jump right in. So to start off, you're going to want to hold down the control key and hold down the middle mouse button, and hopefully, there we go. And as you can see, if you hold it down and you drag it up and down, that mouse that is, you kind of get this like outward view. You get to go inwards, outwards, at a little like slower angle than just zooming in where it's just like bouncing like right in like that. If you hold down the control and then use the middle mouse button as well while dragging the mouse, you kind of get this really precise angle you can get to looking at right there, if you can kind of tell what's going on there. So just an easier way of zooming in, a little bit easier. Same goes as well, so if you hold down control once again, and instead of holding down the middle mouse button, you just zoom, as if you were going to zoom, then you kind of go left, right. So right now I'm pushing downwards on the mouse wheel, and then this is backwards on the mouse wheel. You kind of get going left from right. It's kind of useful. This one, yeah, it is useful. You will use it maybe, but there are other ways of doing this. which I'm about to jump into right now. So these next things are the number keypads, specifically 2, 4, 6, 8. So for 2, if you press that once, you kind of go downwards. If you hold it down, you can do this little like roundabout, I guess. But if you press it a couple times, I've pressed it 63 times, it says right there. Oh, let's get that away. Once it goes away, there we go. Okay. So if I press it one more time, you kind of get this little like jump. As you can see, it's going downwards, the camera. If I press 8, then I'm going upwards. If your keyboard has this, mine does currently, 4, 2, 6, and 8. They have little arrows on them, actually, almost like the arrow keys, but mine do, at least yours might not. But you can see the 8 has an up arrow, so that means your camera is going to be panning up and around like that. The 2 has a down arrow key that's going to be panning down like that. And then the same goes for the 4, which is left, and the 6 is right. You kind of get this radial view once again. It's a little bit easier than just holding down the middle mouse button and rotating like I said before. It's not as clean when you use the numpad, for my taste at least, but it still does work, and it is a little bit more precise, if you will. So that is this. The next segment will be more on advanced rotations and advanced viewing of the 3D space. Alright, so for our final segment on this Blender tutorial navigating through the 3D space, we're going to be doing a little bit more advanced kind of hotkeying, we like to call it, to make things a lot more efficient and faster, especially if you want to go quickly through your projects here. So we're going to jump right in. The first thing we're going to do is, most of these buttons are going to be on the numpad key. Now we got to make sure you are pressing the right buttons. So when I say the numpad key, that is on the right side, just to make sure if you're using a standard keyboard. So let's just jump right on in here. So the first thing we're going to be doing is selecting an object such as this plane here. We have a cylinder and the monkey. Now if you want to snap to one of those really fast, we can click on the plane here, press this period key on the right on the numpad. It's right below the 3 on the numpad, and it should be right next to the big enter button as well, also on the numpad side. If you press that, you go zooming right on in, snap right to it, you get a nice view of the plane or whatever object you're trying to look at. So then we can do the same thing, click on the cylinder, press that button again, numpad period, and you get put right next to your object. Let's try it with a monkey. Boom, right there. Perfect. You get a nice crisp view of it. Very useful if you want to snap between things really quickly. Boom, boom, really fast. Nice and easy. Very disorienting if you go in a circle there. But there we go. So that's just kind of snapping in between things. Now this next button we're going to be doing is the home button. This is a little tricky to find, I will admit, but it's going to be above your arrow keys. If you go right above your arrow keys, you should see a home button on a standard keyboard, obviously. And if you press that, you're going to get this kind of backed out, zoomed out view of the center of your 3D space, I guess, that you're working in. Especially useful if you're knee deep in looking at some vertices of your monkey, like right here, and you're like, okay, I need to step back, take a look at what I'm doing, press the home key, and come right back up here, and you get a nice overlooking view of everything that you've been making. Now we're also going to be using the home key for this next one, which is the 3D cursor, which is this thing that I'm moving around right here by right clicking. As long as you have gone through the user preferences tutorial I've put on, you should be able to know that this is right clicking, not left clicking. If this is your left click, I highly advise going back, watching that user preference video, and then coming back to this one, as I have changed my right click and my left click to different things. So if we right click here, this is our 3D cursor. All we got to do is press the Alt button and the Home button at the same time, and we get kind of snapped right to our 3D cursor. Let's move it over here, and then press them like that together, and you kind of get a snap right to that. So let's try that one more time, right there. Pretty useful, especially if you're like, okay, maybe I just want to go in like this vicinity over here. Boom, right over there, zoom right on in. Situational, obviously, but still useful nonetheless. You can obviously also move it. Whoops, that's the monkey. I don't want to move that actually right now, but you can move this around a little bit like that. Obviously situational, but still nonetheless useful. And now the final thing that we're going to be doing is a little bit more complicated, a little bit on the side of doing a little bit more than expected, but still kind of useful. So what we're going to be doing is pressing Shift and S at the same time, and you get this kind of snap point here. Now what you're going to want to be doing, whoa, it's gone, is cursor to center. You can obviously do any of these other things, but we're going to do cursor to center. Click that really quickly, and your cursor goes straight to the center right there, and then you just do Alt Home again, or you can just do Home. Either or, really depends on what you want to do, but that should be a center view right there. Kind of basic stuff here, a little advanced I will admit, but hopefully you guys get the whole gist of this. I will put a picture up, as you probably already saw before, of the keys that you need to be pressing during this tutorial, but also screencast keys should be showing that as well. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I know it's a little lengthy, it's a little bit hard to follow sometimes, but if you need to, rewatch it again and you should be good to go. Hopefully next tutorial isn't as long as this one, but this is a lengthy and very important tutorial, so hope you guys like this one, and stay tuned for next one. Goodbye.